Hello everyone, welcome to question 11. This is a short answer question for 3 marks. Why in the years after 1848 the autocrats of Central and Eastern Europe began to introduce the changes that had already taken place in Western Europe before 1815? This question was asked in the 2016 board exam. The marking scheme is 3 marks, so 3 points, 1 mark per point that you write. The answer can be found at page 18 of the NCERT text. So let's read the question again, understand it. After 1848, there were changes in Central and Eastern Europe, that is Austria, Hungary, etc., Romania, etc. So these changes were brought into Eastern Europe after 1848. So these changes which are now being introduced are already taken place in Western Europe before 1815. So why was it late, and why did they introduce it late? That is the question. So the answer is that though the conservative forces were able to suppress the liberal movement in 1848, they could not restore the old order. So once a revolution takes place, it's very difficult to bring it back to the same situation as it was before. So the public had moved ahead to a new ideology, and it was very difficult to again bring the conservative order, so they had to find a middle ground. So what were the middle ground? And to reach the middle ground, they had brought about changes, and they learned from the Western neighbors. The monarchs were beginning to realize that cycles of revolution and repression could only be ended by granting concessions to the liberal nationalist revolutionaries. So again, this is a way of finding a middle ground, because if you are too conservative, there will be a revolution. After revolution, you again become extremely conservative, there will be one more revolution. The people wanted change, and this cycle was becoming cumbersome or very exhaustive for the monarchs. It was becoming very expensive. So they thought, to end this continuous cycle, we have to find a middle ground, and we have to grant concession to the liberal nationalists. Liberal as in free. So in the years after 1848, the autocratic monarchs of Central and Eastern Europe began to introduce the changes that had already been taken place in Western Europe before 1815. That is a repetition of the question. The serfdom and bonded labor, that is the labor and the contractual workers, serfs, were abolished both in the Habsburg domination and in Russia. The first thing that they did is they abolished slavery, you can say. So they abolished bonded labor and they abolished contractual labor, which are very low rate. So the Habsburg rulers granted more autonomy to the Hungarians in 1867. What does this mean? They granted more freedom to rule to the Hungarians in 1867. So the Habsburg of Austria had conquered an area of Hungarians. Hungary is a separate country now. So they had conquered them. So at that time it was part of Hungary, of Austria. Hungary was part of Austria. So what happened is the Hungarians were revolting. So they said, okay, let's find a middle ground. We will give you more autonomy or more self-rule, that you can make your own laws, etc. So this was the answer, that firstly the conservatives, that is the old monarchs, etc., were finding it difficult to quash revolutions. They wanted a middle ground, therefore they made some changes to reach that middle ground with the liberal revolutionaries. This will become very expensive for them. Then as a change, they abolished serfdom and bonded labor in the both Habsburg domination, that is Austria, etc., and in Russia. They abolished that. Then the Habsburg gave more autonomy to the Hungarians. That's the country of Hungary now in 1867. So this is question 11. I'll meet you in the next question.